Ok. Test, voce, livello, suono. Ok. Vediamo. Hello Musici, let's continue our journey with Riepel, and in this video we are going to continue our examples, and we are approaching the hermaphrodite fonte, so get ready. Out either four to use no keys other than the 3 with the major third, C, G, and F, and the 3 with the minor third, so A, E, and D. Basically what's saying, we had the main structure of all the modulations in the tonal order, in the tonal order of a composition of a symphony, and we have the 6 degree. The first degree is the steward, the fifth degree is the foreman, then we have the 6th degree, which is the chief med, and then the E, the third degree, which is the assistant med. Then we have F, which is the day laborer, and D, which is the errand girl. Now, based on this, we know that there's a hierarchy and order, of course. The 5th degree, the foreman, because it's the foreman, is most important. So this analogy is very interesting. But another very important element, which is a little separate, is that 3 of them, see the foreman, the day laborer, the steward, the day laborer, and the foreman, they have the major third, while the one on D, which is the chief med, the one on A, the one on D, which is the errand girl, and the assistant med, they have the minor third. So we cannot use these with the major third, these 3 keys D, E, and A. We cannot use them with the major third unless they are changing comma. This is what's Riepel saying. We cannot have a section in D major, in C major, but we can use D major to help the foreman, or we can use E major to help the assistant med, or we can use the E major to help the chief med, for example. Then now we have another element. We have another element to introduce. So the opposite. What about using the minor thirds? So the first degree, the 4th degree, and the 5th degree, but with the minor 4th, 3rd. And I'm noticing that you cannot see my keyboard. That's right. So let's put on the screen the keyboard, because it's here. Here it is. Perfect. So now you can see it, not only listen. And here we are. So let's see, with the major third, out either 4 to use no keys other than the 3 with the major third, C, G, E, and F, and the 3 with the minor third, A, E, and D, except that I may allow the first 3, so 1, 2, and 3, to be heard at times for a little while with the minor third, so C minor, F minor, and G minor. In other words, I can certainly satisfy myself forever composing with just 6 degrees. One can easily deceive the ear for a while, as you have seen in the symphonies, but it's actually dangerous. You're still too weak to do it. Nevertheless, I will give you a small sample of it. Let's see. Here at the scene cross, D comes with a major third. D comes with a major third. What's it saying? Which doesn't be D with the major third. D. No, there's something strange. With the major third, which doesn't belong to the key of C, or rather to the key of D, with the minor third. With the minor third should have been established by means of a flat in front of the B. Okay, but why is saying that D comes with a major third? at the cross, major third on A at least. A. Here, at the scene with the cross, the D. First of all, there is a C sharp. Or he's saying that D has the major third in its fifth degree. It may be. Now let's see the other examples to understand how he's thinking. Nevertheless, but the example is the same. Yeah. Nevertheless, the first example is, in my view, just good as the last one. Okay. Okay, no. I played a B flat here, but there's no B flat written. That's why I show you what. Here, I was playing, of course, with the B flat, as the fonte should require. Indeed, here we have a B natural, okay. And in the second example, we have a B flat. Now, let's play both of them in the correct way. Okay, at the scene with the cross, okay, D comes with the major third. Why? Because we have this note, we have the major third and the major sixth as the major key requires. Okay, which doesn't belong to the key of C, rather to the key of D, with minor third should have been established by means of a flat in front of the B. And now the second example with the flat. Okay, nevertheless, the first example, in my view, is, just as good as the last one, for the reason that the D major does not last long, and it leans rather more toward the successing changing comma in the key of the fifth, so in the key of G major, fa mi, fa mi fa pa pam, where I, however, formulate a melody. Now there is this footnote which refers to something we have already read before, right? Exactly. Smicherli passage. Okay. Now let's see the following example where I, however, to formulate a melody. Let's see. Do, mi, so, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do. Fa, mi, re, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, fa, mi, re, ta. One, two, three. Repetition. Mi, sol, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, dum, dum. Di, re, mi, fa, sol, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, sol, la, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, mi, sol, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do. Re, fa, mi, re, do, fa, mi, re, re, di, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, re, mi, fa, pa. I beg you to stop. The comma at the scene with the cross here is already too superfluous and offensive. Yet, let alone if there were a cadence or comma in the major following. Pam, 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 pam. Too offensive, he says. Let alone if there were a cadence or comma in D major following it. The face of such horrible tonal order, all the all the sables must run out of Siberia. It would be different if in the second part in G the tonic itself were brought in. Furthermore, I would rather write something like this. The second part. So basically it's saying you're starting at the fifth degree, so you have this. This is a comma, followed by another comma of the same species, another changing comma. So it's better to have a changing comma and then a tonic comma. Sol fa fa mi do tin da do da ran tan sol fa mi re mi fa sa mi do di fa sol fa la ti re mi fa fan pa pam do fa mi re mi nin fa re do fa mi la sol fa mi re do mi do. Or I could have made it a little longer than the first part in a word with all the possible combinations, okay, and variations. Good. Now at least we are at home with tonal order. It seems to me, however, that I have also once sung or heard a fonte that is contrary to every tonal order, or at least contrary to the years of all discantists. And now we have it, eh? That is a perverse hermaphrodite for the B flat on the note A, for the flat on the note A, for the flat on the note A, in the second to last measure points to a comma in C minor, and yet, contrary to expectation, there follow a comma in C major. The person who wrote this for the first time may perhaps have thought that he had to use the diminished seventh in the second member of the fonte, just as he did in the first one, in the first member. However, the second member with a flat in front of the note A rather longs for a tonic comma in C minor. And so he says sol fa mi re. This member with a double cross, however, is not desired here. This sounds very strange. Unless one wanted to make a brief excursion into C minor with all diligence and then immediately return back to C major from there. Were the hermaphrodite, however, drawn out longer and introduced better, the ears could still be deceived in a grateful way. This rather pleases 100 connoisseurs, but it has as yet seldom pleased me. For this, I conclude once again that I have deficiency of nature and was not born with a proper sense of harmony. Recently, I encountered the word hermaphrodite. I say hermaphrodite in our dictionary, and I asked my lord about it. He said there are a number of such species among the trees and herbs, the lilies, and on the contrary, the lilies on the contrary are of another nature, etc. Between us, he said finally, laughing, a hermaphrodite is a person who carries both shoulders. Still, I cannot tolerate such an harmonic ruff. Accordingly, I will stick with my natural and clear fonte without the flat. So this way. In time, you will learn more than you will from me. In time, you will learn more than you will from me. At the end, that which we have said up to now with respect to shadow and light, in the violin solo, out one also to observe in concerto, and the rest do not doubt it. This the one is suited to the other. My lord is fond of saying an ex omnibus aliquidista usually becomes an ex toto nihilista. A ex omnibus aliquidista usually becomes an ex toto nihilista. I should learn one single thing properly and let the rest go the other on their way. The harpsichord is the best instrument for composition because by means of complete harmony, one can always find on it enough strange ideas and theme, as we know to some extent from experience. I, however, also know from experience that one thing can help the other. For, for as soon For as soon as Philip began to give me violin lessons, I immediately became a stronger singer. Singing as the principal foundation has certainly already helped me very much with violin and harpsichord playing. My lord, however, does not realize that he does not understand the nature of the violin. Although he makes my bread through composition, I will apply diligence to become still better acquainted with the above said instrument. Uh, you will do well with that. To that end, I will give you the incomparable 6 violin solos that you see lying here. Heavens! We also have 2 concertos at home by this famous master. For the very name of Benda is on this. Benda. He is Philip says the Royal Prussian chamber violinist, famous Benda. When Benda, the Benda, this is the Benda Italian. When you are done with them, I will look for some others for you. Are these arriving? Okay, soon. Mm. Philip must tell me that I may thoroughly explore and fully grasp them. The natural and the pathetic are as artful projected throughout as one could wish. My lord, however, calls only church chant pathetic. In German, pathetisch means moving, touching, even stirring, namely stirring other people, but not only sorrowfully, as some of your and my countrymen have claimed. For in a church, a piece of polyphonic music can have a very slow tempo and downright tragic keys and still not be really pathetic. Polyphonic music, what you say, the slow chorale melody is pathetic because of its strong setting in unison. Makes sense. On the other hand, a church piece can have a brisk tempo and lively key, as long as the text calls for it. As long as the text calls for it. 144. These days, however, there are very few composers who feel called upon to think of this. Concerning this, one hears sighs and laments daily from real connoisseurs. Very few composers who feels called upon to think of this. Concerning this, one hears sighs. These days, however, there are few composers who feel called upon to think of this. Concerning this, one hears sighs and laments daily from real connoisseurs. Okay. A concerto, etc., can be composed in an orderly and artistic fashion, filled out and at the same time consistently laid out. That alone is not sufficient. Many who compose that way continue to believe that they are done an injustice when they receive no applause out in the world. There are, on the other hand, many very common songs that are called immortal by many people, whether or not the composer of this was of the equal of a theorist or a discantist. And instead, what comes from the heart goes to the heart. One must, above all, try to make an impression on the listener, as a preacher does. And the so-called affect itself can perhaps sometimes be different from the pathetic according to the aspect of the thing. In short, that is the true theory of music. that is the true theory of music, say, which I practice as long as I live, and still up to this point I cannot achieve it. In short, that is a true theory of music, which has been sought by all true connoisseurs and experts in all ages, and will be sought until the end of the world. Some are born to it, but they become stronger the more they compose and tireless apply diligence to it. It is often said that the French have much more of the pathetic style in their melodies than the Italians. I gladly confess it. I have to send this to some French people to take their revenge on the country. One moment, because there's a war, you don't know, between Italy and France and French people, so we have to feed this war. Okay, send it later. As I understand it, a pathetic expression can also often be put into very minuets, yes, and even into a presto. But my lord expresses the word ascendit in Latin, with rising note, right, anabasi, and descendit, to descend, with falling notes. Is that pathetic? He can perhaps make it pathetic at the same time, only it is not so just on account of the fact that the ascending means rising and descending means falling. For such an expression of the word is contrary to pathetic expression of the word, merely a shallow artifice, rhetorical figures. Thus, the following, which I copied out from a printed book last year, must hopefully be at least a little pathetic. And so we have an example of what can be pathetic. Let's see if solo tutti, we could arrive up to the end of this pathetic section. Okay. Yeah. Let's play this. Con spirito forte. Aulicus ascendens voces simul elevat omnes. Aulicus, here the syllabation is made at the canis cazzum, which means at the dick of the dog. Aulicus ascendens voces simul elevat omnes. So this is we are missing some little trait to put together the words. Then piano, there is what's written supitz, what fucking letter is that? Between P and A. Suppimit in the tonum. So tonum dum cadit atque sonum, supprimit in the tonum cadite atque sonum. So the courtier, Aulicus, when he raises his voice, but as soon as he falls, tone and sound fall with him. What a poem. Aulicus ascendens voces simul elevant omnes, supprimit in de tonum dum cadi atque sonum. Yes, okay, it's fun, yeah. Cum spiritus. Aulicus ascendens, Aulicus ascendens voces simul elevant omnes, supprimit in de tonum ducadit acque sonum. Aulicus ascendens voces simul elevant omnes, Supprimit inde tonum dum cadit acque tonum. Okay. Here, because of the text, there may be a little something of the pathetic, but where it performed with only instrument, it would be difficult to think of it as pathetic. We will speak more about this later. When I think of composing a concerto or a violin solo, I can certainly conceive if it has a text of an aria in front of me. That's very important for the phrasing. So for all the time, I have never done otherwise. The melody becomes so much clearer, more luscious and expressive, as in the music of my Lord. Surely he understands the rules better than I, and certainly he has always had a few operas lying around him, from which he takes ideas, now from this one, now from the other. Okay, but now we are starting here the new topic, so we'll talk about this in the next video. Okay, stop a second the recording. Okay. Now, okay, let's take a bottle of water and let's continue. Just a couple of seconds. Okay, ready to continue with water. Now, let's continue our journey together with Riepel and let's start this new point. So, when I think of composing a concerto or a violin solo, I can certainly conceive of it as if I had the text of an aria in front of me. For all time, I have never, I never, I have never done otherwise. The melody becomes so much clearer, more luscious and expressive as in the music of my Lord. Surely he understands the rules better than I, and certainly he has always had a few operas lying around him from which he takes ideas, now from this one, now from the other, without copying. Such theft betokens no great rule. On the other hand, your way of composing is just right for the pathetic. I simply do not know rightly whether I should make the tutti of a concerto long or short. The theme or opening tutti may well be made several measures longer, so that some of its antitheses may be incorporated into the solo every now and then. So the theme or opening tutti may well be made several measures longer. The opening, The opening. So that some of its antitheses may be incorporated into the solo every now and then. Some want to force the following solo to be longer than the stated theme. I, however, find no good reasons why one should always observe that so strictly, for it does not depend entirely on the first solo. The middle tutti certainly should not be made as long. Mm, In every way, the solo should be heard and not to the solo should be heard and not the tutti. So the first tutti even longer. Then, so that some of the antitheses may be incorporated in the solo every now and then. Then some wants to force the following solo after the first tutti to be longer than the stated theme. However, I find no good reason why one should always observe this so strictly, for it does not depend entirely on the first solo. The middle tutti certainly should not be made as long. In every way, the solo should be heard and not the tutti. So the last tutti often consists of only 2 or 3 measures, as if it were crying out the solo. Vivat, bravo, beautiful. Three, three measure praising the solo. Vivat, bravo, beautiful, etc. But what if, for example, the solo sounded bad? Then the tutti would cry, "Foo, nasty, lots, lots sound." One often hears long and disgusting middle tuttis only for wind instruments. Only for one often hears long and disgusting middle tuttis. Only for wind instruments may one take the middle tuttis longer by a couple of measures. So only for a wind instruments may one make the middle tutti longer by a couple of measures so that they may catch their breath meanwhile. There again, you're quite correct. Meanwhile, I would rather hear someone say, "It is a shame that this concerto, etc., is too short," than to hear it said, "It is a shame that this concerto is too long." I know well, I know well that you wish to consider brevity as a significant sign of skill, right? That, however, does nothing for me. I usually begin in the first middle with tutti with the same theme as the first tutti, except that it is abbreviated. However, I rarely begin the second middle tutti, the one that is in the key of the sixth or third degree, in that way. I rarely begin the second middle tutti, the one that is in the key of the sixth, One moment. I usually begin the first middle tutti with the same theme as the first tutti, okay? Except that it is abbreviated. However, I rarely begin the second middle tutti, the one that is in the key of the 6th or 3rd degree, so minor relative or E minor, in that way with the theme, but rather I make use of the antithesis at its beginning, or else the solo itself must lead me a few measures, that is, measures that have already been heard in the solo, and I do that in order that the beginning of the theme and I do that in order that the beginning of the theme not be heard so often in the final tutti. I do the same thing, although I usually take care to form only suitable antitheses in order to finally make a brief return at the end. My lord says that one must begin the solo quite differently from the first tutti. Then, your lord therefore does not even know what theme means. Why does it not he not just say that every tutti must begin in its own way, while also every solo must begin differently? So every tutti must begin in its own way. Where is the pen? Here it is. Every tutti every tutti must begin in its own way, while also every solo must begin differently. In that way, one could turn a single one of his concerto into an entire dozen. Why should we not be permitted to imitate opera arias, in which the clauses and ideas are heard so often in repetition that they remain better fixed in the memory of the listener? So why should we not be permitted to imitate opera arias in which the clauses and ideas are heard so often in repetition that they remain better fixed in the memory of the listener? Another way is to let the solo begin with an antithesis in any desired variation. So here we have an example. Now, tutti, theme or initial tutti. Do, mi, so, sol, fa, mi, do, fa, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, dom. Then fa, mi, re, dom, pam, pam, pa, pam, pam, pa, 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 pe, so, sol, fa, mi, fa, do, 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 da, 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 di, re, dim, ren, do, 1, 2, 3, pa, da, 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 tim. Pa, 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 pa. So, naso fa mi re do po. And now the solo begins like the tutti theme. Do mi sol sol fa mi do fa sol fa mi fa do di la fa mi re do fa mi re. Or if you prefer, it can begin this way, now and then. Tam tore tam tire ton ton tom pam pam pa 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 pam pa pa pam pam pam, or perhaps even a bit veiled. Or it might perhaps be better this way. Fa 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 mi re do mi sol fa mi re do 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 mi sol sol fa mi re do fa mi re. Or this way. Do mi sol sol fa mi do fa sol fa mi fa do. Control motion la fa sol mi fa re mi fa mi re. Or another example. Sol fa mi do fa sol fa mi fa do di do di la la sol fa mi re. Or do mi fa sol la sol fa. As you can see, there are many variations. Do mi fa sol la sol fa mi do fa sol fa mi fa do re mi fa mi sol fa mi re. Or re mi fa fa sol fa mi re do re mi fa mi la sol fa mi re, or perhaps even on the third degree, mi fa sol la sol fa mi re do re mi fa mi la sol fa mi re. Since all these measures and brief antitheses are, as you see, derived from the theme and have already been heard, it follows that it is because of the unifying cohesion that not much doubt arises in the end. The antitheses, however, are the antitheses, the antitheses, the plural, however, are usually scattered much more throughout the entire concerto and incorporated into the solo. And this seems to be the only way to make a concerto aria-like, because it can already easily become sufficiently novel by means of repetition, expansion, and various pitch alterations. I know well that often the solo begins quite differently from the theme. On the other hand, the middle voices are often given some familiar notes of measures. On the other hand, the middle voices often are often given some familiar notes or measure from the theme during the solo. This is something one certainly sees also in one or another aria. I will just give you a little sample of it. Mateus, hello, good morning. Where are you from? Is morning or evening or night where you are? Then let's see the thema. That's the first thema. He says, on the other hand, wait a moment, the middle voices are often given some familiar notes of measures from the theme during the solo. Okay. This is something one certainly sees also in one or another aria. I will just give you a little example. Okay. Then there is a solo. Let's see. This. You see here the 4 or 5 opening notes of the theme used in the accompanying bass. Ah, okay, it's saying the first line is the first tutti or solo, where the first note pum 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 pum, or better pum 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 pum, they are used here. Pum 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 pum, fa mi re do re mi re do so fa pum pum. And that the viola or second violin could also be filled out similarly if they were written for them instead of for the bass, which has its assigned duties anyway. However, notes or measures from the tutti theme should be placed not right at the beginning. So notes or measures from the tutti theme should be placed not right at the beginning but farther on in the solo. Notes or measures from the tutti theme should be placed not right at the beginning, but farther in the solo. But farther on in the solo. So the solo is starting, and those elements shouldn't be put at the beginning of the solo, but after a few measures of the solo. Okay, so imagine that the solo is starting 2 or 3 bars before. Okay. In fact, I once heard a concerto in which the solo had its own fluttering melody, throughout without borrowing the least. I heard a concerto in which the solo had its own fluttering melody throughout without borrowing the least thing from the tutti theme. However, the tutti theme merely made an appearance first here and then there with its antithesis during the solo, just as if they always wanted to meet in a hostile fashion. However, the tutti theme merely made an appearance first here and then there with its antithesis during the solo, just as if they always wanted to meet in a hostile fashion. Likewise, there are fugues in which the theme is heard throughout with a major third, while the counter subject, on the contrary, is heard with a minor third. But these are only selected rarities. In the meantime, I have noticed that the second middle tutti. A moment, is Tristan asking if the live started? Yes, it is. In the meanwhile, I have noticed that the second middle tutti, so we're talking about the second middle tutti, for example, in the key of the 6th degree, does not always have a cadence. Why do I say second middle tutti? Because the first tutti probably is at the 1st degree. Probably is at the 1st degree because it's the opening. Then there is a solo. Then there is the first middle tutti. So the middle tutti are all the tutti without counting the very first and the very last. So the second tutti is at the 5th degree G, and the last and the second middle tutti is at the 6th degree at the shift med. And the second middle tutti, for example, in the key of the 6th degree, does not always have a cadence, and also does not have to remain always only in the 6th degree, because the solo that follows it can begin, if desired, in the tonic again. That is in all the other possible variation. However, since in particular each middle solo can have for its use 5 middle keys, it would be difficult nevertheless to put the key of E and F one after the other. However, sometimes real out and out delicacies can be turned out by that means. I will, however, try just a little bit of it. Let's see. E minor, F major, Sol, Fa, Mi, Re, Do. Let's play it again. Sol, La, Fa, Fa, Mi, Re, Do. He says the F sounds so impulsive after E, as if it were chromatic. True, but now the F first. I would say much better. These examples falls a little more gently on my ears than the previous one. True, I agree. I really hope to figure out over time which one it has to be. 2 minor keys. I really hope to figure out over time which one it has to be. 2 minor keys such as D and E and D go together far better. Okay. 2 minor keys such E minor and D minor go together far better. True. Or the reverse. So we have E and then D. And then even C major. Actually, here there are 3 phases. So Sol, La, Fa, Mi, re, do, fa, mi, re, ta, ra, tu, ta, ra, tu, ta, ra, ta, ta, ra, tu, ta, ta, tu, ta, ra, ta, so, fa, mi. Actually, I could have also gone to A minor. Let's see. Okay, so basically it's doing this passage, so the E minor and D major, in E minor and D minor, here moving to G with a comma, changing comma to G, but then here is moving in the second example to A minor, basically reusing the previous passage. Sol, or better, from this. Sol, fa, re, mi, la, la, sol, fa, mi. Sol, fa, re, mi, la, sol, fa, mi. This passage. However, that is not the question, but rather I want to ask you about something important, quite important. However, we will first rest for a little while, and talk of something else. Okay, however, we'll first rest for a little while and talk of something else. I see that something else is starting, but okay, and something new. So let's see. Now we'll probably do this in the next reading. Look, as soon as I neatly wrote down and organized all our explanation and discussion about metric order from the past Monday and Tuesday, as you wished me to do, the Hofstadter came across it and paged through the whole chapter, unfortunately. So he started to talk about something else. Okay, let's do this way. Let's cut here the video and let's continue with this topic in the next video, reading what's going to happen now. So from this point, and see you next time. Here, of course, I'm continuing the streaming. I have other 30 minutes. Okay. I need a Kleenex napkin. Where is it? 1 second. Okay, there we go. Hello Musici, let's continue our journey together with Riepel. We arrived at this point and something new, a new discussion is starting. So let's go into this. I'm really curious. Mm, however, from this point, we will first rest for a little while and talk of something else. Look, as soon as I nearly wrote down and organized all our explanation and discussion about metric order from the past Monday and Tuesday, as you wish me to do, the Urbstatter came across it and paged through the whole chapter, unfortunately. My Hippler, oops, for the pen, from Opulisburg, Mr. Hippler from Opulisburg, who often comes with him to the coffee house, has now also turned against you. This flame war. I know the latter already through his book and so-called dissertation, which he has published. And what's more, the day before yesterday, it really came down on you. The day before yesterday, it really came down on you. That is, he said that you think you can soar like a lark in your disordered and superfluous explanation, but you are poised to fall at every moment, like a quail in a paddle. Quail in a paddle. They say that you want to show that you have an understanding of many things, which, however, is false, for you have only picked up something here and there, specifically by the hair, to make a lot of wind with. Then it is not enough that expose my weakness forthrightly to the light of day. I must have also a little conversation for my trouble. To be sure, mm, what pleased me did not please these two gentlemen, and what pleased them did not please me. It did not please me. You should not be angry on my account. They, however, spoke against you with strong words, such as our neighbor Hansel is not nearly in a position to use against me. No matter how ill-bred he is, the word brainless was the most polite and among them, so that Philip could not listen any longer, but rose up against them. You want to be scholars, but you may still be both far from more sensitive and rougher than many scholars. Mr. Hippler, you have written good books. One of us must contrive something novel on the violin and overreach the mark in doing it, etc. Tomorrow I will tell you how the Sutter ground up your situation in life, for everything is known to him. The good hay rackers for scolding is no art, should rather write some chapters on metric and tonal order. Then you could compare his opinion with mine. Don't think badly of me. I decided anyway for the time being to consider as false yours as well as other I decided anyway for the time being to consider as false your as well as the other's writer's explanation. That will consequently be good will remain good. That what will consequently be good will remain good. In all natural things, this is an excellent way to judge something. For that reason, I explain even everything problematic, to the discantist. In fact, I read that good advice against just yesterday in a French book, Descartes. If only you will not get hold of the bad. If only you will not get hold of the bad by chance instead of the good, which unfortunately, wait a moment. In fact, I read that good advice just yesterday in a French book. If only you will not get hold of the bad by chance instead of the good, to get hold, which unfortunately among us mortal creatures common happens. The good Hippler, so I need to understand what's written here, because I don't know what to get hold of means. Let's see. Let's ask Musicus GPT. Hello, Musicus GPT. How are you?
Hey there. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Ready to dive into some more Baroque adventures or anything else you've got in mind?
Yeah. I'm reading a book which is written in English, and there's a phrase I don't understand. I'll tell you. I read it in English. Can you explain me it in Italian, please?
Absolutely. Go ahead and read me the phrase and I'll put on my translation hat for you.
Okay. So the phrase is, if only you will not get hold of the bad by chance instead of the good, which unfortunately. Then what I don't understand is what you will not get hold of the bad in English.
Certo. Allora, quella frase si può rendere così. Se solo non ti capitasse per caso di mettere le mani sul cattivo invece che sul buono. Quindi quella parte significa semplicemente non finire per afferrare la cosa sbagliata invece di quella giusta. Fammi sapere se ti torna.
Ah, okay. And tell me the translation of the entire phrase.
Certo, quindi la frase intera diventerebbe: se solo non ti capitasse per caso di mettere le mani sul cattivo invece che sul buono, il che purtroppo, ecco, così in italiano.
Ok. Il che purtroppo, so which unfortunately among us mortal creatures commonly happens. I would say that this may be here actually. The good Hitler, however, is merely a straw racker. He understands absolutely nothing about music, and he wants to help the Upstarter who on the whole, does not need any help. At home, I have read a German grammar together with one in Latin. You know well that I could not otherwise compel myself to speak with you this way. It gives and the ancient and affected High German words such as affi or aufi, which is derived from aufein instead of hinauf, nacher instead of hernach, anhin from heni instead of heni, abi from abhin instead of habin, blah blah blah. But why do you call the Ubstarters and the Hitler Strohmi and Hohumi? Like the, okay? Be quiet. I'm already very sorry about it. It is true, nature dictates. My street upbringing did not entirely enable me to respond to such sketching speeches. Uh, Although I believe that I considerably reduced this hateful deficiency years ago. In this respect, I wish to nourish myself as a little from it as from contemporary writings. Besides, the story has merely been translated from a foreign language into ours. For once upon a time, I do not know when or where the militia has to be practiced and could not understand left face and right face, so that the segment ordered them to bind a little bundle of hay on their right arm and a little bundle of straw for their left arm. Then he cried, "High side, straw side!" That was certainly a good stratagem on the part of the surgeon. But to go back again, because one can use the tonic in the middle of a concerto even as a middle key, every middle solo can be rearranged 120 different ways, as was explained a few minutes ago on page 94. There is truth in that. We will make a test of that in miniature. But since we have written everything in the key of C, we will see whether you know also what to do in other keys. I may only tally it up, or I will, in order to make it evident to you, write something in all the usual keys miniature. I will go no farther than the fifth, however. So there is this, and then we should see other examples in D, E flat. Okay, good. Let's see. foreman, cadence to the foreman, errand girl, steward. Okay, stop. I think that 3/4 time is easier to write. Okay. Pam pa pam pam pa sol la fa re sol mi do pa. Fonte. Good. Or arrange more briefly, I manage with a single line of notes. Good. Now do it just as Mr. Riepel does in his dissertation. But why? I have nothing to do in that case but transpose this example, namely does. And then continuing going on this way, they are just transpositions. I would also like to see the 6th degree in this. Right away, I just want to fashion one more diligently with an expanded miniature. I just want to fashion one more diligently with an expanded miniature. Let's see. Foreman. Chief med. Errand girl. Steward. Now, tell me quickly whether such a miniature would not otherwise be of any further use. Why not? Just write the word solo and adagio above it. A violinist will readily decorate it with ornaments. In fact, it will be 1,000 times preferred to a solo cobbled together. In fact, it will be 1,000 times preferred to a solo cobbled together by a composer who does not understand anything about the violin. I, however, become more clever. Our Philip has, among other things, very graceful adagios. One of them that he has is by an old Italian master in which all the middle keys beyond the tonic are substantially introduced. Now let's see if it's going to be just a little section. Yeah, so we can continue, let's say, up to this point. Okay, then we have the organ bass, but we'll stop here before the organ bass. Good. So now we have this adagio. Let's play this adagio of the old Italian masters, where all the key beyond the tonic, all the middle keys beyond the tonic are substantially introduced. More adagio actually. Now I'll play it in time. Just one thing. Okay, no, correct. Okay, with a possible bass. I could scarcely imagine that there were so many middle keys. For Merlin, such an adagio may well have seemed pathetic, but now it sounds a bit too old-fashioned. Our film certainly tries to make it new with its ornaments during performance. Now, however, the 6th degree with brief miniatures. Okay, so now a modulation of the 6th degree with brief miniatures. Then D major, B, Sol, Fa, La, Fa, and then back at the end to the main key. So cadence to the 1st degree, pork put that up, C, then A, G, then A, and then back to C, of course, back to C. So this is a concert in miniature. Interesting. E major, pam pa pam pam pa pam pa. Good. G major, pa pa to pa to pam pa pa. Pam 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 pam. A major. B flat major, fa la fa mi fa do ta ta. Now, alternatively in fugal style with the 3rd degree. In fugal style with the 3rd degree. Fugal style doesn't mean with the fugue. With a fugue, but with the plan of the fugue, because he showed, if you remember one of our previous videos, how Fuchs made modulation to the 3rd degree in fugues, in his fugue style. So he says, Riepel, that in the concerto style we have the modulation to the 6th degree, while in the fugue style we have the modulation to the cadence to the 3rd degree, E minor. So that's why it's not a fugue, of course. Hey. Fa mi fa fa ti tu fa mi fa pa 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 pa. Example continues. A major, mi re do, fa la fa mi fa do la do ta ta ta, re pa re fa mi re do. Very good. And then he provides the figure bass of the organ and something different. It's starting, even if okay, we have the same melodies. Now there's another a lot of other tables. Oh my god, goodness, I don't know what's going to happen. We'll have a lot of examples to play. Oh no. Oh no. Yeah. Okay, but this is next video. And the good news, we are not so far from the end, so we have a lot of other books to start to read and translate. Little important thing I'm going to reveal you: there will be a very interesting Spanish book we are going to translate and read, but I won't say anything else. By the way, we arrived up to this point. Next time we'll discover what's going to happen with this organ bass. See you. Okay, so, and I should even terminate the streaming, so see you in one next time.